All right, welcome everybody to the Huddle on the K9 streaming platforms. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. We're a half hour late today. That's okay. A little technical problem. It's all squared away. The show's going to be better than ever. We've got a lot in today's show. Pat, first, how are you?
Doing well. Now that we're on and streaming, we're all good.
All
We're
right.
all good.
Let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. Arizona men's basketball right now on track for a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. If the season ended today, lots to go. We'll talk about that. A lot of fans showing up for Arizona women's basketball. That's great to see. The Roadrunners are now going to have a higher seating capacity than the Arizona Coyotes, as crazy as that sounds. Okay. We'll touch on the Kyler Murray drama. And can the Cardinals make it 3 in a row? 3 in a row, what? We'll talk about that. All right, Pat. Let's first start. Arizona men on track for a #1 seed. Still a lot to go, ways to go for this Arizona men's basketball team. Before we get to that, you could not be more pleased with the way this team has looked so far this season. They have been phenomenal ever since the very beginning of the year. Azuolas Tubelis is playing on such a high level. So many of the players are. The offense looks fantastic. It looks like Tommy Lloyd was the absolute home run hire. And as an Arizona basketball fan, I don't know how you can be more pleased with this team so far this year. Only 2 losses right now, and here we are in the middle of February.
Yeah, playing excellent basketball, even when they have poor starts to games, which they've had a couple lately. They don't seem to worry like the fans do at all. They just kind of weather the storm and then get right back to their game. They find a way, whether it's beating a zone that they're not used to seeing or whatever. They find a way and they figured it out. And Tommy Lloyd gets a lot of the credit. So do the players for their individual efforts and kind of all elevating their game a notch up compared to last year. You mentioned potentially making it as a #1 seed in the tournament if it started today. At #2 in the net ranking, #3 in the AP, but #2 in the net ranking. That means only Gonzaga is a higher seed. So not only a 1 seed, but right now, if they were to start the tournament, they'd probably be the second best of the 1 seeds. It opens up a whole can of worms though about okay, Gonzaga #1, top #1 seed is going to stay out west. That means potentially Arizona, if they were going to be a #1 seed, have to
But
go to
that's
the
okay,
south.
Pat,
But
because they're
that's
still going
fine.
to
Yeah.
open the tournament
Well,
in San Diego, and
yeah.
San Antonio, which is where the South Regional is
Right.
equidistant
Yeah, and
California.
and
I'd
and
rather
you know
rather
what?
go
In
to Texas.
a lot of ways, it's just as easy if to get to San Antonio from Tucson it is to get from San Francisco from Tucson. I mean, it's not. You're right. It's the distance wise, it's no different. Feel wise, it's probably more like a southwestern feel anyway. So yeah, I think Arizona will be right at home in San Antonio as a #1
There's
seed.
still a
Uh,
ways to go. They've got a road game
I
at
was just going to say
USC,
that.
and they've got the
Yep.
Pac-12 tournament. But
Yeah,
Pat,
and
let's
the
take a
U.
look at the. Go ahead.
The USC game's the one that really concerns me because we saw what happened with UCLA at UCLA. USC is going to be very similar. It's going to be one of those games where they might get down early, but they can't get down so far like they did at UCLA that they can't quite come back. And yes, they avenged that loss. That's great. We just don't want to see them struggle or stumble there. But you know what? This team's poised. If they lose one more game along the way, that's better to lose between now and mid-March than it would be once the tournament starts. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Let's take a look at the Pac-12 standings. The Wildcats right now are 3 games up, and you know what that means? There's going to be a very good chance we're going to see nets being cut down in the finale, the regular season home finale on March 5th. March 3rd, it's a Stanford Cal weekend. The 2 teams are coming here. March
Right.
3rd is the Lute Olson special night. And March 5th, I think we're going to see, oh, maybe they could do it on March 3rd if they clinch then. But when you take a look at 3 games up in the loss column, looks like the Wildcats, it's their Pac-12 regular season to lose at this point.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Jason. It might happen before we even get to those final 2 games. I mean, statistically, they could even do it on the Saturday before that. But we'll see. They've got to keep winning in order to do that. They win out, they win handily the Pac-12. But a lot's got to happen. A lot's got to play out. USC stands in the way. They've got Oregon coming here. Don't forget, and that we should point out, Jason, our sister network ESPN
That's
is going
right.
to have College Game Day on Saturday morning here from 9 to 10 on ESPN. There's nothing more exciting than when game day comes. I know football game day is probably a little bigger deal than basketball game day, but it's got that same sense that you hope the students show up Saturday morning, even though the game's not till Saturday night. They come Saturday morning to McHale and get rowdy show everybody that Arizona basketball is back and as good as it's ever been.
It's been a few years since game day was here. College football game day, if I'm not mistaken, came in 15 against UCLA, a home game, and they got blown out.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. And college basketball game day came around the same time. I forget who they played. But you know, it means there's a buzz around the team and they're being nationally recognized. So that's fantastic.
Exactly.
Another team also having a great year. So the men's team ranked 3rd, the women's team ranked 8th. The women's team is going to the Washington schools this weekend. And you know, Adia Barnes said, well, we wanted to wake the fan base up. They've woken the fan base up here. We had 8,000 fans plus here as we take a look at the women's Arizona women's basketball. They had 8,000 fans here Super Bowl Sunday for the ASU game. 10,000 fans, I believe it was for the game a couple weeks ago. And
against Oregon, yeah.
It is very exciting. Yeah, the rematch against Kelly Graves. And, you know, there's a buzz around this team, too. Kate Reese is a phenomenal player. She really has those intangibles. She's such a great leader on the court, and they play such great defense. And to have these two basketball teams playing as well as they do, and you know, it's a different player, you know, each game. Maddie Connor came in last game and 16 points. That was a career high for her. Another game was Shayna Pellington. I know they didn't win at ASU, but she had 30.
She was phenomenal at ASU.
Somebody steps up. It's not always the same player who steps up offensively. Coy Love has done it. It's not always the same player who steps up offensively every game, but one player does.
Yeah, and here's what I'd like to see. You know, you can nitpick about what the men, you know, you like to see a little bit better from the men, and maybe it's a faster start for the men. For the women, what I want to see is probably more consistency from the star players, so that you don't have to rely on somebody stepping up each game. If you follow
part
me.
of that is foul trouble. They got to stay out of foul trouble.
They got to stay out of foul trouble. And in the women's game, because of quarters, 4 fouls, the other team's already at the line. And I know over a 40-minute game that might equal out, but it really doesn't if you think about it. 4 fouls, you can reach 4 fouls pretty quick in a given time stretch in a quarter. And I think the consistency thing is what's going to have to develop, and just be more of a 5-person unit where, yes, one player might get 30 one night, but the rest of them are going to fill in and be consistently good as well. I think that's what they're missing, is all that I would, if I was going to nitpick a little bit, Jason, and that's what kind of cost them at the ASU game. They got in some foul trouble. Poor Kate Reese got just nailed across the jaw as well, and sat out quite a bit of that the second half. But then came back. She did come back. But I guess that's my
hit a 3-pointer.
Yeah, and hit a 3-pointer, right?
And then hit a 2.
Yeah.
She's a warrior on the court.
And they had a chance to win that game too, and then they avenged it 2 days later. So that's great. And you know, and nationally ranked, those who vote on the national rankings, they recognize that too. Just like when Arizona came right back and knocked off UCLA, and they flip-flopped basically in the AP rankings. Arizona only dropped a couple of spots after losing at ASU and then coming back and avenging that. While the men are net ranking of 2, the Arizona women have slipped a couple of spots though with that loss to ASU. Their net ranking is now 12, and really all that means is they're looking at a 3 seed probably instead of a 2 seed. That can build back up too if they just start get on a little hot streak here and finish up the regular season. They could easily find themselves as a 2 seed.
And we're taking your comments and questions along with Pat Parris. I'm Jason Barr here on the Huddle, KGUN 9's streaming platform. And if we take a look at the women before we get on to the Coyotes, they're pretty much playing for second place in the Pac-12. I mean, Stanford wins the championship over Arizona last year, and they've just been phenomenal ever since, and are now 12-0. So they're going to win the Pac-12, and U of A playing for 4 teams there separated by a half a game for second place.
Yeah,
but
and
as you said, almost more importantly is to keep that net ranking in the top 16 to make sure they host 2 home games, and hopefully
those home games
as high as possible too to get the better draw.
And a number 2 seed in the Pac for the Pac-12 tournament's important too, Jason, to get a bye. So you want to finish second in the conference and avoid playing Stanford until a championship game in the Pac-12. Right. If you were going to
let somebody else beat Stanford,
exactly.
We don't need to see them a third time. We've seen them enough.
Yes.
or a second time because they're not coming here during the regular season.
Yeah, it's
third
unfortunate.
Time meeting in the championship game last year. All right. Pat, I want to talk ice hockey for a little bit because, boy, I was surprised about this. It was almost like I couldn't believe it, but it's true. The Arizona Coyotes, so that's the parent team of the Tucson Roadrunners. It's an NHL, the NHL parent of the AHL Roadrunners. They're going to play at Arizona State's hockey new arena, which is being built for next year. That means you're going to have an NHL team playing in an arena with a seating capacity of under 6,000 fans. Keep in mind the Tucson arena seats more than 6,000, so the Roadrunners are going to be able to seat more than the Coyotes. I call up my colleague at ABC 15, our sister script station up in Phoenix. I said, "This doesn't seem right." He said, "Nope, they're gonna be able to charge a whole lot more for tickets. Every game is going to be sold out because the demand is so great. It's going to be in a better part of town. I'm sure concessions will be a little bit more." I initially thought that this might be some type of bargaining chip, but it looks like now, Pat, they're really going to play at ASU's brand new arena starting next year.
And here you got to remember the big picture. And I'm like you. At first, I was shocked, and I had to do a little more digging into it. This is a temporary solution to a long-term problem that the Coyotes have had. Of course, they're getting kicked out of Glendale. The Glendale people think they can make more money by renting out the arena that the Coyotes use for concerts and things like that. So they're booting the Coyotes out. The Coyotes have in place an agreement, a verbal agreement, and they're working towards a final agreement with the city of Tempe to build them a hockey arena, a full-blown hockey arena. Well, that's going to take years. So this is the temporary fix, to which I said, and I said this to you out loud when I first heard it. Well, the NHL governing board, you have each team has two governing board members, the governor, and then they have an assistant or associate governor or whatever they call it. How is the governing board of the NHL, the 30 teams, going to allow, how the 29 other teams going to allow a team to play in a 5,000 seat arena? Well, Gary Bettman the other day, the commissioner of the NHL, longest tenured commissioner in all the four major sports, said that as long as they have an agreement for a building in the future, he's okay with them playing in 5,000 or 5,500 seat ASU building for the short term. I was a little surprised at that, but if the commissioner's already out in front of this saying that this is how it's gonna be for a couple of years, then it's gonna be that way. But I'm with you, and what Craig Fouie from ABC 15, what I think you were alluding to is, the ticket prices are gonna be outrageous. The concession prices are gonna be outrageous. I guess that going to a Coyotes game doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the short term.
Yeah, Tillman Fertitta in Houston, a businessman in Houston, he's kind of floated around some interest in the team. So, that's another possibility that they would move to another city. So, I mean, this beats seeing them go elsewhere, because if they were to go elsewhere, well, that's less of a chance that the Tucson Roadrunners stay.
Here's a thought. Why don't they play a couple of games a season for the next couple of seasons down here then?
Might as well.
What?
Yeah,
It's you got more capacity. You're going to sell out.
Yeah.
People,
That's
some
a
of the
great
Coyote
idea.
fans.
I always remember what NFL teams would do that. Remember the Packers
Sure
would
they
play
would.
a couple teams
in
a couple games in
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee,
Yeah.
and didn't one of Larry Bird's going back in the day here, but one of Larry Bird's best games ever was against the Hawks in New Orleans.
Yes. Well, remember the Kings were the Kansas City Omaha Kings for a couple of seasons. Then they were just the Kansas City Kings, and then of course they moved to Sacramento. But there is a precedent for this, and why not? Just have a weekend homestand, for the Coyotes in Tucson. What the heck?
Absolutely.
We floated that out there. Now the universe has to decide whether it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, I think the franchise should do that. Great idea. Okay. Next, we'll move on here to Kyler Murray, and we'll take comments, by the way, any calls or any emails or messages or anything like that. A week ago, he takes the Cardinals off his social media. We discussed how, or at least I thought that was a childish move. And now he comes out this week and he says, well, you guys don't know. Well, we don't know what. That doesn't help anything. You got to be a little bit more clear than that. Like he didn't clear up the waters with anything. Well, at least then say what it's about. So there's several reports that he's not happy with his contract. The situation is that the Cardinals can pick up an option for a 5th year. He's going into his 4th year, or what he most likely wants is a long-term contract. I don't know what else he could be unhappy with. And to me, his reaction this week of, well, you all don't know, well then you should say what it's about if people are wrong.
Yeah, and the speculation, of course, in some nationally publicized articles about, he's kind of selfish, and he's kind of a baby. Some of his actions kind of point towards that, and he's saying, he's not. Well, but what are you then? He really has not said exactly why he deleted all of his posts and unfollowed everybody, unliked everything.
Yeah, he put out this message: I play for my teammates and myself and my
Yeah,
family who supports me. Oh, wait, you also play for the Arizona Cardinals.
yeah, you play for the
Even
Cardinals,
that, with
right?
omitting the
Right.
Arizona Cardinals, if anything, you made the situation a little bit worse.
Here's what it gets down to, I think, and he's not telling us. I'm sure his agent's clearly telling the Cardinals what he wants. But so he goes into this next fall, this 2022 fall campaign. He gets a $4.5 million roster bonus fairly soon after the new, NFL league season begins. He'll get a $4.5 million roster bonus to go with his $965,000 fourth year of his rookie contract. So he's going to make 5.4 million this year. That's the standard for a rookie quarterback, a quarterback on his rookie contract. The fourth year, you mentioned there's a fifth year option. Going into his fourth year last year, Josh Allen got a new deal with the Bills, and I think this is what he wants. He wants the going into my fourth year. I want the Josh Allen Bills deal of 6 years, $258 million. Now, we can argue all day whether he's as good as Josh Allen. I don't think he is, but I think he's good. I think he's worth, a contract extension. Are they going to give him 6 years, $258 million? Very doubtful the Bidwells will do that. So that's what it comes down to me. And I just don't think he wants to go nationally and talk about this is what I want. I think he's letting his agent do it behind closed doors.
All right. So obviously deleting the Cardinals off social media, off of unfollowing them. Right. Well, listen, the other issue with Murray, and you think, well, he's going to get hurt because he's small and he's been hurt before. To me, he does a good job of sliding and not taking hits when he doesn't have to, and he does a good job of falling. I really don't think that's an issue. And even if he did get hurt, I mean, look, Dak Prescott got hurt and he still got his contract. So I don't think it's an issue of injury. I think it's an issue of performance with him.
Yeah, and performance being an entire 17 game schedule. And
Right.
yeah, you miss a game or two, but you got to come back and continue to perform and lead the team at the same level you were at before you got hurt. And that just didn't happen this time.
And look,
He
they
was
did
not
lose
the
to,
same player.
yeah, they did lose to the Super Bowl champions in the playoffs.
True,
It's not like
true.
they
And you
lost
know
to a
what?
bad team.
The Rams started getting better by the end of the season, and by the time they got to the playoffs, the Rams were I still think they were the best team. Everybody's darling pick was the Bengals, not mine, but everybody's darling pick was the Bengals, and not yours. You and I both picked the Rams. But the Rams were playing the best football at the end of the year, in the playoffs, and they deserved to be Super Bowl champions.
All right, so we teased 3 in a row. How could the Cardinals go 3 in a row? So you brought it up, Pat. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl in their home stadium 2 years ago. I believe that was the first time a team had played in its home stadium for the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And then just a couple days ago, the Rams won the Super Bowl 56 in their home stadium, thanks to that play. And so next year, the Cardinals host. So usually it's bad things can come in threes, but maybe good things can come in threes here, or things in general can come in threes, because they do host. And listen, they are a team on the rise, and they've got some really strong veteran players and a good young quarterback, and a strong defense. And DeAndre Hopkins has got to stay healthy. He got hurt this past year, but it's not like it's a team on the decline whose window was just kind of ending. It's still a team on the rise, and it's a team with its pieces in the prime of their career still, and it's a team with a ton of pieces on offense and on defense. So it's not unfathomable to think that they can be back, and all this drama about Kyler Murray will be forgotten if they get off to another great start. But then also going to be hearing questions next year. Well, Cliff Kingsbury always gets off to a good start, and then he
falters.
But the bottom line is, it's a team on the rise that could very well get back there next year.
Yeah, and here's the way I would break it down, or I would look at it. Last year it was Tampa, and obviously with the addition of Tom Brady, and Rob Gronkowski, and it just kind of all came together. And they were a team that was a decent team. You inject two great players like that, and they won the Super Bowl. And it just so happened to be in their home stadium, which doesn't hurt. I mean, it sure makes it a lot easier to be in your own city and have a good sense of the stadium at the same time. Then you look at the Rams, and the Rams they've ascended, and they've been one of the better teams the last couple of years. All they needed was a quarterback to get them over the hump. They get Matthew Stafford, the perfect scenario for him. All works out. They win the Super Bowl. Just happens to be in their home stadium. There's familiarity there, and they get to celebrate. My only concern about the Arizona Cardinals, have they already reached their peak? Have they already maxed out their potential? And we saw that in the first, 2/3 of the season, and then they began to falter and lost those games. I'm a little concerned that we're not going to see a team elevate to that next step to get over where the Rams are, to get over where the Buccaneers were, in order to win a Super Bowl. A lot of things have to happen, and DeAndre Hopkins may be the biggest of that. Jason, if he's there, I mean, if he's healthy, he's the best receiver in the NFL, I think, or at least one of the top 2 or 3. So you've got to have him. Kyler Murray, how many times did he bail out Kyler Murray last year? And not only the Hail Mary, but just him being on the field creates so much opportunity for everybody else. They've got to have him back healthy, and you kind of catch lightning in a bottle, not just for half the season. You got to do it for a whole season.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins was fantastic. It's still a team that's improved each year under Cliff Kingsbury, and like I said, on the way up. So, this can all be forgotten with a few good games. So, that's where I am on the Cardinals and the Super Bowl. And I had the Rams winning by 31-23. So maybe I was a little too high scoring. Than
Yeah,
what
I
the
think we
game
both
did.
were a
But
little.
generally, we both got it
Mhm.
right with the defense and it's
It
Matthew
was Stafford.
Stafford's
Yep.
time and
Yep.
but for a minute there, when Odell Beckham
Oh
Jr.
yeah,
got hurt and the Bengals
I
got all the
know.
momentum
I
for a stretch, I thought
I
maybe they were going to do it.
I said, as the fourth quarter began and the way things were looking, I said the only way they win this is if Matthew Stafford is able to engineer some kind of drive with basically one player in Cooper Kupp. I mean, it really came down to their running game was awful. They had no other receiver. Their top 2 tight ends were already at one. It was Higgins was gone before the game even started, and their other tight end, their starting tight end, was out quickly. So really, they just had Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. I said, if they can do this, then Matthew Stafford deserves it, and he is a great quarter. To me, I elevated him beyond where I thought he was because of that game. I think that I put him up in a little higher up in the elite status of quarterbacks because of what he did. I always knew he was a good quarterback in Detroit. We didn't know how good he was. I think that last drive he engineered shows you that he's a really good quarterback.
I didn't like those penalties at the end, but because they missed the penalty on the Bengals touchdown, I can live
Yeah,
with it.
that was pathetic.
Alex
Well,
Steiner, what would
Alex.
Brady? All right, here's what I'll say, Pat, and I'm half kidding, half serious. When I was talking earlier that Tom Brady was going to come back out of retirement, and a lot of people are saying that, I was thinking of 2023. Now you got even some talk that he might come out this year. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think he's going to have an itch to play more football. And I think a lot of things have got to fall in place. I was not going to bring up Tom Brady here in this, but with Alex's
How
message,
can you not though? How can you not when Alex?
if the 49ers have everything going for them and Trey Lance struggles as quarterback and Tom Brady is from there, was at Candlestick Park for the Dwight Clark catch. There's always been this little act. He was snubbed by the team on draft day. And obviously, it's a new management and all. I think that there's a possibility that could happen, but let's just enjoy life for the next time being, and we'll get to that
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to it.
I'm not seeing it, but I've been wrong before.
Yeah. All right, Pat. Well, it's going to be a busy few weeks here. We got the Cologuard
It is.
Classic with golf. We got March Madness, Rodeo Week. This is the busy time for sports here. So
Yeah, it's a great time of the year. Great time of the year for sports.
all right. Well, we'll be back Tuesday at 3:00. I was going to say the same time, but about the same time next week, Tuesday at 3:00. Yeah. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks everybody for listening and watching here on K Gun 9's The Huddle.